All right. And it looks like everyone coming in is keeping their camera and mic off, which is great. I guess I'll give it about 30 seconds and we'll start. So. All right. So I think what we'll do now is have everyone turn their cameras off of the speakers, and we'll start our introductions right now and say hello to everybody. So. All right. Well, hello to everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today for the Color Literacy Forum number 4, Color and Materials, Past, Present, and Future. I'm Luann Stovall. I'm the forum host and team member of the Color Literacy Project. For any more information about this project, please visit us online at www.colorliteracyproject.org, and we'll put that in the chat box. And that's going to be color with a U because this is an international project. Today's program is the second in a 4-part series on color perception. It's the foundation of 21st century color literacy. The first forum in this series took place in December and was dedicated to the relationship between color and light. So before we meet our esteemed guests, we invite you to introduce yourself by putting your name, location, and university or workplace in the chat box. We are interested in who you are as we work together to cultivate 21st century color literacy. So get your fingers typing in the chat box so we can meet everybody. All right, so an overview of our program. Each speaker will give a 15-minute presentation. After the presentations, there will be 3 breakout rooms for Q&A sessions with the speaker. Each room will have a moderator from the Color Literacy Project. The Q&A sessions will be 20 minutes long to open a space for more in-depth conversation. You will have a choice of the 3 rooms. So we won't have questions Q&A during the talks because we're going to go right from one talk to the other, but please keep your questions ready, and we look forward to having you ask them directly to the speaker in the breakout rooms. And during that time, you'll have an opportunity to turn your cameras on during the breakout session so we can see who you are. And then for the last 10 minutes, we are going to reconvene in the main Zoom room for a brief summary from each of the breakout rooms. We will also announce the next Color Literacy Forum at that time, so be sure and stay tuned. So right now, I think everyone's doing this, but please reminding you to keep your camera and mic off during the presentations right now. Okay, I think that's what we need to go through. So as I mentioned earlier, today's program is the second in a 4-part series focused on color perception. The theme is color and materials, past, present, and future. We're used to dealing with color in terms of hue, value, and chroma, but color is much more than that. It is always connected with some kind of material or phenomenon, and light is involved every time. This combination creates many different kinds of appearances and applications of color. Today, we're going to hear from our speakers about 3 very different perspectives that delve into the past, present, and the future of color in relationship to color and the material world. Our first speaker is Dr. Carolyn Boyd, whose work entails a deep dive into the history of our hunter-gatherer ancestors, who painted their colorful origin stories on rock walls. She will begin our exploration of color and materials with her talk, The Past, Colors of the Ancient World. Dr. Boyd holds a PhD from Texas A&M University and is a Shumla Endowed Professor in the Department of Anthropology at Texas State University. And Carolyn, if you want to go ahead and pull your presentation up and have your camera on while I'm doing your intro, that would be great. So Carolyn is also an artist and an archaeologist specializing in iconographic. Hold on one second. Just lost my screen here. Okay. Okay. She's an artist and an archaeologist specializing in iconographic analysis. Her primary interests are the documentation and interpretation of Pecos River style rock art in Southwest Texas and Coahuila, Mexico. Dr. Boyd's research examines the role of hunter-gatherer artists as active participants in the social, economic, and ideological fabric of the community, and the function of art as communication and as a mechanism for social and environmental adaptation. In 1998, Dr. Boyd founded a nonprofit organization, Shumla Archaeological Research and Education Center, to preserve through documentation and education the prehistoric art of the Lower Pecos. Current projects include Origins and Tenacity of Myth in Archaic Period Rock Art of Southwest Texas and Northern Mexico, funded by the National Endowment for the Humanities, and Layers of Meaning, Chronological Modeling and Photograph Stratigraphy, funded by the National Science Foundation. So with no further ado, I'd love to introduce, have Carolyn take the stage. So Carolyn.
Thank you so much, Luann. Can you see everything just fine?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Luann, and the other members of the Color Literacy team for inviting me to be a part of this exciting forum today. So yes, I'll be speaking about colors of the ancient world, and especially in relationship to a panel that we refer to as the White Shaman mural. In 1989, while I was working as a fine art painter and a muralist, I traveled to the Lower Pecos Canyon lands of Southwest Texas and Northern Mexico to visit some of the oldest known art in the Americas. This region is situated along the U.S.-Mexico border and extends about 100 kilometers north and 140 kilometers south of the Rio Grande. The rock paintings here are referred to as Pecos River style murals. They were created by hunters and gatherers living in the region as far back as 5,500 years ago. The artists invested a lot of time and resources to produce really complex murals that stretch as much as 150 meters long and extend upwards well out of reach from the shelter floor. Almost all of the Pecos River style murals required some form of ladder or scaffolding to produce. We're reminded of this every time we go into the field to document the art. The site I'll be talking about today, the White Shaman mural, is located at the heart of the region. When I first visited the White Shaman in 1989, I recognized the mural as a planned composition that spanned about 8 meters long and 4 meters tall. I recognized the artist's use of things like rhythm and movement and action, and I noticed their skillful use of color harmony to create beautifully balanced arrangements of color masses. However, the prevailing thought within the archaeological community at that time was that this and other Pecos River style murals were a random collection of images painted across hundreds or thousands of years. Recognizing that the profession may not be ready to accept my observations as an artist, I decided to return to university to obtain my PhD in archaeology. The rest is history and has obviously become my future. Almost 30 years after I visited the Lower Pecos for the first time, I published a monograph about the White Shaman mural. Building on decades of archaeological research, I demonstrate in the book that the mural is indeed a single composition. And using information from Mesoamerican ethnography and ethnohistory, I suggest that it's a visual narrative that tells a story about the birth of the sun and the beginning of time. This is a story that's still told today by indigenous people that live in Texas and Mexico. Since the book's publication, though, we've made new discoveries about color that have further enriched my understanding of the art and the artists. Today, this is going to be my focus rather than on the iconographic interpretation of the narrative. For that, I encourage you to read the book. What I've learned is that color in the ancient world engendered life. Images were made to exist. They were made to live by the symbolic power of colors and an inherent life force in the paint ingredients. I've also learned that it was and continues to be the language of the gods. Through color, artists communicated with the gods. And through color, the gods communicated with them. Although we have far to go in identifying the complete paint recipes used to produce the paintings, we do know that the pigments are inorganic, things like hematite, limonite, manganese, and gypsum, and that these inorganic minerals were combined with organic materials to make the paint. What the organic materials are is still unclear, but our preliminary studies suggest that animal fat, likely deer bone marrow, was the binder, and that the juice from the yucca plant, also known as soap root, may have served as an emulsifier. In the ethnographic literature, each of these ingredients is sacred and powerful. At Schumel Archaeological Center, we are able to extract organic materials from the paint for radiocarbon dating using a process called plasma oxidation. The oldest radiocarbon assays that we've obtained for the paintings date to around 5,500 years ago, and the youngest to as recent as 1,300 years ago. This suggests that the murals were in continuous production for more than 4,000 years. The White Shaman mural dates to around 400 BC. And at Schumel, we've spent decades documenting, analyzing, and digitally reproducing this mural. As a part of our documentation, we created illustrations of each of the figures in the mural, such as the deer that you see here. While doing this, we noticed what seemed to be a very unnatural painting sequence. Black dots, such as these within the body of a deer, appeared to be under the red. In fact, it looked like the black paint was always the first color applied to the wall. So we decided to study the mural's painting sequence using digital microscopy. We examined 197 locations of intersecting paint layers within the mural, and what we discovered was startling. Not only did the artist paint the black dots first, but they painted all the black in the mural before applying any other color. After applying black, they applied red, then yellow, and finally white. Through funding that we received from the National Endowment for the Humanities, we've just completed a project to see if this paint application rule governs the production of other Pecos River style murals. We've now analyzed more than 1,400 locations of intersecting paint layers across 11 sites. And the preliminary results are quite intriguing. 99% of the locations examined follow this painting order. And we've also determined that this rule was in place at the style's inception and endured for thousands of years throughout its production. So why? Why this rule? Why did the nomadic foragers invest so much time, labor, and effort to produce these murals? I really believe that the artists were investing themselves in the very serious business of creation. Every choice they made reflects a reality in which everything, including the art, is animated and powerful. Ancient Mesoamericans, like most indigenous peoples today, live in a world in which everything is alive and equally real. And everything, including art, possesses the power to make things happen. Images are animated, empowered, and vivified. Color not only made the characters visible in the art, but transformed them into living beings. Colors are associated with and contain the very essence of specific deities, natural phenomena, gender, substances, souls, cardinal directions. And in Mesoamerica, and the cultures in Mesoamerica, black is equated with such things as water, death, femininity, and primordial darkness. In contrast, red is equated with blood, life, fire, masculinity, day, and the crepuscular light of the sun on the horizon at dawn and sunset. Yellow is related to sunlight and the sun-drenched earth, and white is equated with the moon, the light at midday, sacrifice, and transformation. Images were also made to exist by an inherent life force in the paint ingredients. The raw materials instill images with the lightweight solar matter of organic colorants or the dark, wet lunar matter of inorganic minerals. The artist's choice of an organic or inorganic pigment was motivated for reasons beyond obtaining a specific color. It was for instilling in the image either the hot, luminous solar force of organic materials or the cold, dark terrestrial force of inorganic substances, or perhaps both. In the Mesoamerican world, the universe is always regenerating itself by means of the interaction of these two complementary yet opposing forces. The animating power and meaning of color was not only determined by raw materials used in paint, but by how those materials were processed. For example, Aztec deities associated with fire were painted with red ochre. Inorganic materials from the earth, though, were not associated with heat, but with the cold forces of the underworld. Through ochre processing, however, the Aztec artists instilled the essence of fire into the pigment. They exposed yellow ochre to extreme heat and fire to transform it into red ochre. Thus, red ochre was considered a burnt substance and was associated with fire. Lower Pecos artists used a similar process to obtain red pigment that they used in some of the murals. Although red ochre occurs naturally in the region, they extracted iron oxide from yellow siltstones, separated the iron-rich components from the quartz matrix, and then heat treated the yellow iron-rich powder to transform it into a red pigment. It's a very labor-intensive process, but it was a process that infused the raw material with the essence of fire. In the White Shaman mural, black objects with red tips represent torches carried by the ancestors through the underworld to fuel the birth of the sun. For the artists of the mural, though, those torches were not simply graphic representations of firelight. The red paint contained the essence of fire. They were a flame. I suggest that the Lower Pecos artists, or perhaps more appropriately, the alchemists, combined terrestrial and solar forces to produce meaningful paint. They united minerals obtained from the earth with organic ingredients obtained from plants and animals to produce vivid and vivified colors, colors that engendered life. Each layer of paint in the mural represents a layer of human behavior, a layer of choice and meaning. The artist began with black, the color of femininity, the watery underworld, and primordial time, a time of perpetual darkness that was broken only by the cool light of the stars. After the black paint dried, the artist applied red, the color associated with masculinity, fire, and blood. It's the color of the fiery red glow appearing on the horizon just before sunrise. It's the union of red and black, masculine and feminine, fire and matter, initiated creation and gave birth to the sun. And the next color applied was yellow, the yellow associated with the rays of the morning sun as it warms the earth and overcomes the cold black of night and the red of pre-dawn. And finally, the artist applied white, the color associated with the zenith and the light of midday. It's the light that renders all of creation shadowless. It's the color of sacrificial transformation and transcendence. Moving from darkness to light, artists participated in divine creation. They instilled cycles of time and meaning into the mural through their choice in materials, color, and the paint application order. And from there, the master painter, the sun, takes over and completes the cycle from light back to darkness, from transcendence into chaos. As you can see here in these time-lapse photos, the color order is reversed. As the sun sets in the west, it paints the wall white, then yellow, then red, and ultimately, as it disappears into the underworld, we have returned to the blackness of primordial time. Like the rhythm of a beating heart, motion and life are instilled in the mural through this color dialogue between the artist and the solar deity. On the winter solstice, the transition from yellow to red occurs at a very specific time and place in the mural. As the sun sets, it casts a shadow on the wall that stops abruptly at the head of a figure that we've identified as a lunar deity or moon goddess. In Mesoamerican myth and iconography, the sun decapitates the moon on the winter solstice, thus marking the end of her reign as the ruler of the nighttime of the year. In the mural, through an interplay of light and shadow, the moon goddess is decapitated by the sun, and after decapitation, the mural becomes bathed in red. From a Western perspective, rock art panels are viewed as a collection of lifeless signs and symbols. The rock art of the Lower Pecos, however, challenges that perception and proposes a reality in which the artists imbued images with life through color and the deliberate selection and processing of raw materials and manner of execution. The paintings were not merely decorative, instructional, or records of past events. They were and continue to be powerful, sentient beings that possess their own point of view and intentionality. But let there be no mistake. The concepts that I presented here are not just things of the past. They are alive and well in the indigenous world today. This was driven home to me earlier this year when interviewing Huichol shamans and artists in Mexico. Images are still made to exist by the symbolic power of color and the inherent life force in paint ingredients. Color, the language of the gods, engenders life, past, present, and future. Thank you very much.
Oh my goodness. Carolyn, thank you so much. That was absolutely beautiful. I will just remember forever the color is the language of the gods. You have brought it to life so beautifully, and thank you so much for your brilliant work. And Carolyn will be sharing, and we'll have on our website more links to how you can find out information from what Carolyn has presented. There's so much to learn from. So thank you. I will introduce our next speaker, and Jose, if you want to pull up your slides and put on your video, that would be great. Our next speaker is Jose Luis Caivano. Jose will focus on the present moment through cesia, a concept that refers to the perception of different spatial distributions of light, including all visual sensations from transparency and translucency to opacity and mirror-like appearances. His talk is titled The Concept of Cesia, Visual Appearance Other Than Color, Examples in Architecture. He will show us how color sensations and cesia are different aspects of the perception of light that both contribute to the visual appearances of objects. Dr. Jose Luis Caivano is a research fellow at the National Council for Research in Argentina and professor at Buenos Aires University in the School of Architecture, where he leads the color research program. He holds a degree in architecture, a PhD in theory and history of art, the highest category in the national research system in Argentina. He was a research associate at the Center for Language and Semiotic Studies at Indiana University, and the president of the International Color Association, the International Association for Visual Semiotics, and the Argentine Color Association. Caivano has been appointed as honorary member of Ad Chroma in France and the Portuguese and Mexican Color Societies. He serves on the editorial board of various international journals and is a senior editor of Color Research and Application. So, Jose, the floor is yours. I'm Jose, you're still mute.
Yeah.
You're mute. Okay. Great.
Okay, thank you.
And we need to.
Are you seeing full screen?
Not quite yet.
Right?
We see the.
Okay, let's try full screen. Here we go.
Perfect.
Right? Okay. So I will speak about this concept of cesia, which may be known to some people, but could be a kind of novelty for other people. And after explaining some basics about it, I will show some examples and some uses in architecture. We can see color in different modes of appearance. One of them is the illuminant mode. That is to say, when we see colors directly from a primary source of light, which may be natural or artificial light. Another mode of color appearance are surface colors, where we don't see the source of light directly, but instead we see the light that is reflected towards us. And a third mode of appearance are volume colors or film colors, the typical mode for transparent objects that transmit light. So from this image, we can take the characteristics represented here in the rectangles, and everybody will agree on saying that they are different colors. But we might also refer to aspects such as transparency, gloss, translucency, matte appearance of opaque objects, etc., etc. And for all these aspects that have something in common, Cesar Gianello coined the term cesia. Objects and surfaces may produce different spatial distributions of light. That is, how light is distributed in space. And this constitutes the stimulus for the perception of cesia. For instance, a diffuse light reflection normally produces a matte appearance. A regular or specular reflection generates a mirror-like appearance with a sharp image reflected on it. A diffuse transmission of light produces a translucent appearance, while a regular transmission of light produces a transparent appearance with a sharp image behind it. And finally, if an object or a surface absorbs almost all the light that it receives, we will see it dark or black. So every color may appear in all possible cesias. For instance, a yellow color may have a matte, transparent, mirror-like, or translucent appearance. And every cesia may appear in all possible colors. Here, a transparent cesia is seen in blue, green, yellow, red, and other colors. Cesia is defined as an aspect of visual appearance that accounts for the sensations that vary along three main axes. One of them is light versus dark. The second one is transparent versus opaque. And the third one is diffuse versus sharp in terms of image. So moving along this axis, we may define the dimensions of darkness here, permeability or degree of transparency from opaque to transparent, and degree of diffusivity from diffuse to regular or sharp image. Here we can see a scale, one of the many possible scales of cesias, from clear water, which looks transparent, to dense milk, which looks opaque with a matte appearance. And in the middle, we have intermediate degrees of translucency. Such as there are color atlases with physical samples, we may have also the possibility to assemble or build an atlas of cesias. In this example here, this atlas is made with pieces of glass that change in diffusivity from a mirror to a matte reflection with intermediate steps of different degrees of gloss from right to left. And from up down, there is a variation in darkness towards black here. All the samples in this particular plate of the atlas have permeability 0. That is, all of them are opaque samples. Along different plates of the atlas, each plate shows a change in diffusivity and darkness, as we have seen. So the variation from one plate to the other shows is a variation along the opaque versus transparent axis. So this is the third possibility of variation. Here, for instance, the plate featuring transparent and translucent materials, translucent samples that also change in darkness is used in this case to make a comparison to establish a visual match with some object. But what we have to take into account is that cesia is not an intrinsic or inherent property of material. It is a visual sensation. For instance, this piece statuette enameled with may appear glossy in certain condition of lighting, but it could be seen as a matte, with a matte appearance, of course, depending on the kind of illumination. Here, the same piece of frosted glass may appear with different degrees of translucency, from near transparent to more translucent. And this depends of the distance from the background. The same piece of clear glass may appear with a more specular or mirror-like appearance, or with a transparent appearance. And this depends here on the angle of illumination and observation. And here we see transparency and reflection in the same object, depending on the interior and the exterior light intensity. A vertical window looking from inside a room to the outside in the morning at 11 a.m. when transparency predominates and permeability is 90% or something like that, at 7 p.m. in the evening, exhibiting a mixed cesia with about 50% transparency and 50% reflection. That is to say, 50% permeability to light. And at night, 11 p.m., with full reflection. That is, permeability is 0 here. And now, let's see various examples of different cesias or use of cesias in architecture. This is the House of Glass built by Pierre Charot in France, which displays a wide range of cesias. For instance, translucent bricks of glass, polished wooden surfaces, metallic surfaces with glossy finish, transparent glass panels, surface with a matte finish, etc. In this work by Legorreta architects, instead, surface colors predominate. That is to say, opaque and matte surfaces with strong textures. There is no variation of cesia. Everything is opaque and matte, since the focus, the main variation, is put on color. Metallic gloss is the characteristic of the cover plates in the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao by Frank Gehry, except for the entrance in which transparent glass transmits the light from inside. Water is also an architectural element, and it can be used to produce a sharp specular reflection or a more soft or satin reflection, depending on the illumination, the sky, and also depending on the wind that may create some blurring effects on the water surface. With backlight, we can appreciate a transition from translucent to opaque in this facade, and a very high glossy appearance on the water. But with front light, the translucent effect is lost, and now the entire building looks as an opaque and massive building. The water here exhibits a soft gloss due to the reflection of the sky. Here, there is a detail of the translucent to opaque variation in the corner with backlight, and the opaque appearance of the same corner with front light. Being outside this building, transparency predominates when the interior illumination is strong as compared to the exterior one. Being inside this building, transparency also predominates because the exterior illumination is now stronger as compared to the interior one. The natural illumination allows also to perceive the glossy finish of the floor. The overlapping of glazed panels at varying angles creates reflections, but also allows degrees of transparency. This is a peculiar view of the Fargos house by Mies van der Rohe, which is enclosed with wide panels of glass. Here, in this picture, the conditions of lightness or darkness of the objects, the furniture inside the house, the vegetation outside, etc., determines whether transparency or reflection predominates. Take a look at this detail, or for instance, this detail, or here with the sky reflected. Finally, a few examples of variation of cesia and general appearance of objects and space in different lighting and viewing conditions. Looking at this door with glass from outside to inside in the morning, 11 a.m., transparency and reflection appear mixed. But at 11 p.m., with the interior illumination stronger, the glass looks as a fully transparent. Here, 4 pictures of a staircase, all the pictures taken from the same angles and distance, but they are taken at different times of the day. In the morning, 8 a.m., in the afternoon, 2 p.m., in the evening, 7 p.m., and finally at 11 p.m. Here, color, light and shade, and cesias display a variation along the whole day. 4 pictures taken from a dining room inside and looking to a garden in the morning, 10 a.m., in the afternoon, 2 p.m. Here, the exterior illumination is stronger than the interior one, but in the evening at 7 p.m., the conditions of illumination, both inside and outside, are approximately equal in intensity, and thus reflected objects and objects seen by transparency appear mixed, superimposed. And finally, at night, at 11 p.m., the garden outside is dark and the interior illumination prevails. So this produces specular reflection on the glass. And we just see all the interior reflected on the windows. Final slide. Here, there is a glass panel on the left side of the staircase, and it is taken at different angles. At 20 degrees, the first slide, 10 degrees, and 0 degrees. You cannot see the glass here. The interior wall is yellow, while the exterior one is white. Depending on the angle and the illumination, at 20 degrees and 10 degrees, either white, yellow, or a mixture of both colors can be seen by superimposed transmission and reflection. So you can see yellow, reflected yellow mixed with a little of white, and white reflected on the glass of the staircase. And here, white to yellow in a gradation. So that's it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jose. And it's just fascinating to me to see from Carolyn's discussion of the power of light and color to where you're bringing us into the present with the living phenomenon of how color really, how we perceive color. And I mean, it's such an important, I think, foundation to our understanding of the fuller phenomenon of what color is, and so important in the 20th century to really understand that. So I so appreciate that. Thank you. And we will move in from Jose. We will, I'm asking Noora and Konrad to turn your cameras on, and you can pull up your screen and I will do the introduction. So for our third and final presentation, we're going to move into the present with Noora Yao and Konrad Klockars. Their talk is titled Sustainable Wood-Based Structural Color. And it's an alternative process of generating color through materials that could lead to a green transformation in the effect pigment industry. Noora Yao is a designer and concurrently a PhD candidate under the supervision of Professor Kirsi Niemaki in the Department of Design at Aalto University, School of Arts, Design and Architecture in Finland. She obtained her master's degree in product and spatial design at Aalto University and a bachelor's degree in ceramic and glass art and design. Her research focuses on the prospects of nanocellulose based structural color in art and design applications. Konrad Klockars is currently a PhD candidate under the supervision of Professor O.J. Rojas in the Department of Bioproducts and Biosystems at Aalto University in Finland. He obtained his master's degree in chemical, bio, and materials engineering at Aalto University. His current research focuses on the material properties of structural color coatings obtained through the self-assembly of nanocellulose. So here we go into the future. The floor is yours, Noora and Konrad.
Thank you, Luan. Can you now see the full size dias? Yes, okay, great. Okay, hey, thanks. It has been very interesting to hear other talks about color. They have been extremely interesting. So we are presenting with Konrad our interdisciplinary research about nanocellulose-based structural color called shimmering wood. Today, we want to show you a potential direction for the future of colors. And when we look to the future, naturally, the sustainability of color production is at the focus. And perhaps someone here listening can recognize the same feature in themselves. For as long as I can remember, I've been extremely interested in shiny and glittery colors. The colors of morpho butterfly wing, the feathers of peacocks, and the colors of jewel beetles have always been very fascinating to me due to their magnificent, shiny, vivid, glittery metallic colors. And all of these examples that I now listed are based on a color formation mechanism called structural coloration. And actually a large part of the sparkling colors observed in the nature are created using the principles of structural color. To explain the idea very simply, structural colors are colors created by the interaction of microscopic nanostructures and light, completely without absorption pigments or other coloring agents. There is a nanostructure on top of a surface or an object or a thing, and when light hits this nanostructure, the light is reflected due to certain optical phenomena so that we perceive color. And in this slide, you can see the morpho butterfly, and actually there is a brown pigment on top of the butterfly wing. But then there is also this bruisewood looking nanostructure, and when light hits this nanostructure, the metallic iridescent blue will appear. Nature has been able to create these structural colors for a long time. For example, there are fossils that still have their shimmering and shiny colors on their surface after millions of years, because structural color does not fade in the same way as pigmentary colors, which are based on absorption. So it remains as intense as new as long as the nanostructure remains intact. So in theory, you can create non-fading colors with this coloring method. There is structural color which is not glittery. For example, the blueness of the sky can be said to be a result of structural coloration. But most of the time, however, structural color is glittering and also iridescent, meaning that it changes depending on the viewing angle. And in this video, you can see an example of iridescence. Depending on the viewing angle, the colors of this sample changes. And sometimes this change can be very radical or dramatic, for example, from very metallic blue to transparent, or less dramatic change, for example, from green to purple. Well, today, the need for sustainable colorants is real. There is an increasing number of research conducted concerning the colorants and their effect to our environment, our planet, for example, in the field of textile industry. Holographic, iridescent, and pearlescent color effects, all of which are kind of keywords for structural colors have been very popular in design and arts in the past few years. Often these colors or these color effects have been made in some way utilizing the principles of structural coloration, but currently these colors are made using either plastic or metal-based materials or with toxic pigments. At the same time as these are used and desired, there is a customer demand for these. There is also growing concern about the environment, concern about microplastics and using fossil-based materials, concern about problems caused by mining metals and dyeing methods that pollute waterways and can be very harmful to the people. So in our research, we are asking question, what if these colors could be made from environmentally friendly renewable resources? And we are trying to find solutions for this in Aalto University through the collaboration of design and material science, where we are developing a solution from a material that might not be the first thing that comes to mind when you think of glittery and shiny colors, because we are making it from wood.
Okay, so now let's see how we can transform wood into structural color. So the first thing to do is to grind wood into tiny microscopic fragments, and then we need to extract something that we call nanocellulose. And for this, we don't need to use any particular species, or we don't need to use any particular part of the tree. And we can also use other plant biomass, such as sawdust, waste fractions from sawmills, or why not wheat straw from agriculture. Now we need to process the nanocellulose a bit, and then we apply it onto a surface to create a structural color coating. And now what you see here doesn't contain any pigments or colorants. So the color comes from light that is reflected by a nanostructure, and this nanostructure comes from the nanocellulose and forms during the drying process. So basically we end up with a non-toxic color that is produced 100% from wood, and that doesn't harm the environment if it ends up there. And now me and Noora, we've been working on this together since 2016, and we founded the Structural Color Studio, where we try to develop both the technical and the experiential aspects of the color. We combine methods from design and material science, such as lab work and prototyping, and we envision the future of the color. The color has been studied by others for very technical applications, but we would like to bring this color into the field of design and art. Now, over the years, we've tested the colorant on several different surfaces, but we've found that it works especially well on wood. And first of all, since the color is a bit brittle, the coating is a bit brittle, it works better on rigid surfaces such as wood. But more importantly, Woodless has developed so-called monomaterials that are more sustainable and easier to recycle. Basically, materials that come from the same source, wood. But we do still think that the color should be developed further so that it could be used also in fashion and apparel on softer substrates. And now in the next few slides, we'll introduce a few features that makes this color quite special and provides many future opportunities.
Okay, first of all, I go back to the iridescence, so meaning that the color changes depending on the viewing angle. And as I mentioned before, it's very characteristic for many structural colors. And it's also very characteristic for this nanocellulose-based structural color. We have played with this feature, for example, when creating a monomaterial that we call edgy, in which we strive to create color surfaces which from certain viewing angle would show their shimmering colors and from the other would disappear completely. So the monomaterial seemed to be reacting to the viewer and offered a moment of surprise. And here is a video of how it did work. So from another angle, you were not able to see the colors actually at all. And then they did pop up when walking past the monomaterial.
And here in this slide, we can see another kind of thing that can make this color shift in addition to the viewing angle. So the two objects that you see are actually the same object taken from the same viewing angle, but one of them has been wet. And now when you add water to this coating, the color will slowly start to change towards blue, yellow, red, and finally it becomes transparent. But this process is fully reversible. So if you dry the coating, you will make the color reappear. Now in the wet state, the color loses some durability, but we're looking into sustainable methods of making it waterproof while still keeping open the possibility for this effect for having changing magical and secret colors. And here we have something called the coffee ring effect, but don't let the coffee name confuse you. This visual feature doesn't relate to coffee that much. So what happens here is that when you coat a flat surface with this color, the edges will take on a different color than the center. They tend to become more red than the center. And this is something that happens naturally. It's not an engineered effect. Now, in previous scientific work on this nanocellulose-based color, it's been mostly considered for technical applications such as sensors in electronics. And there, it's of course very important to get a highly uniform color. And this is why there's been considerable efforts towards preventing the coffee ring effect from occurring. And the result is that this coffee ring effect is seen as a problem that needs to be solved.
Yes, but when I saw this, I started to think that although it is of course very important to achieve those uniform and even colors as possible, this could also be used in the context of design because it has visual potential. I would rather call this the highlight effect because it can be used to emphasize the shape of an object or things, perhaps company logos or help in pattern design, for example. And as far as we know, no other dye does the same effect naturally. And it is precisely at these kind of conversations that we have been having in the research when we have noticed that or how important it is that different perspectives are involved in the development process of a new material or colorant. So we started to explore with the effect and its visual possibilities, for example, by prototyping a shoe and a pattern on it, and the kind of the characteristics of the color were here working as a guideline for the design work. And in monomaterial called camo, we investigated how curved and flowing patterns can be shaped from wood and how we can control and use the highlight effect or the covering effect as a design tool that guides the design of the pattern and creates unique effect with this colorant. So we wanted to show this highlight effect as a strength of this colorant. We have also different methods to create many different color hues and to modify the intensity of the color. But the perceived color is also significantly affected by the shade of the surface beneath the nanostructure. We were inspired by the wings of Morpho butterfly and created a monomaterial called Morpho, where we wanted to show how strong and bright colors can be actually created naturally without anything but wood. The wood was turned black here with the traditional Japanese shosugiban technique. And the coating shows its brightest and most intense colors over dark surfaces due to certain optical effects. In this work, the highlight effect or the covering effect also is clearly noticeable, but the patterns are not as controlled here as in the camo work. They are more organic and freer. And our latest work is related to this shimmering wood tiles. The work consists of 576 pieces of pine, the surface of which has been charred and coated with nanocellulose. And the repeating pattern is inspired by old shingle roofs and traditional ceramic tiles. And this repetition also describes the work of Structural Color Studio, because developing a new material or colorant and understanding its behavior requires several hundred or even thousands of repetitions. So through trial and error, we strive to understand this colorant. What we present here is also a research result. When creating these monomaterials, we have played with the idea that creating big things from materials or colors that we are used to be seeing in very small applications could potentially change how people think and view the future of these materials and colorants. And of course, we still want to challenge our understanding of what colors can be created from wood, and that you can do more than earthy shades of brown and gray, show that wood can even shimmer. Here is our contact information, and we are looking for answering your questions in the breakout rooms. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm just amazed at the presentations, and just before we start our breakout rooms, I'm going to be interested more, Konrad. You mentioned the magical and secret colors, so that kind of harkens back to Carolyn and the sort of looking at sort of with awe and wonder about the world that we live in and respecting it. And also, and ending with your presentation, the huge importance of sustainability, so that we understand where the materials, what happens with the materials, what the effects are, and so that we can take care of our earth and ourselves, and then enjoy the absolute beauty of what color is for us. So thank you so much to that. And I want to ask all the speakers to turn on your cameras right now. And also I will just, we have three of our colleagues from the Color Literacy Project. If you would also turn on your camera, that is, you will see Harold Ankel and Robert Hirschler and Ingrid Kabel-Ivanovic. So you'll see in the three breakout rooms, the first one it's Carolyn with Ingrid. The second breakout room number 2 is going to be José with Robert. And breakout room number 3 is Noora and Konrad with Harold. We have 20 minutes, and then we're just come back very briefly to just to give a very short recap and tell you about the next forum. So with that, hopefully all our technology will work well, and you will have a choice to go into the breakout room of choice. So. And if not, we'll have Robin and I Robin, you can turn your camera on. We'll be in the main room, and it can help out with any issue. So, all right, thank you so much, and have a great session. Everybody's coming back, yay. While everybody's coming back into the room, let me apologize first for less ease of going into the breakout rooms we wanted. So, and also you're welcome to keep your cameras on, everybody, so we can see everybody together. But anyway, I apologize for that issue with getting into the breakout rooms, and I'm working on my breakout room skills. So please bear with me. Anyway, just a very quick recap. Let me start with Ingrid. We'll take just about maybe 2 minutes just to tell us anything from your room that we can take away with us, and then we'll close. So Ingrid, you are.
Yeah, just to do a quick recap. Let's say that after these presentations, and most of all after Carolyn's presentations, the idea that we got is that coloring materials is something that we have to look through different eyes. We have seen living material color in the different presentations. We have seen coloring movement, animated color, and this may take us also to a new perspective where we are embracing the color changes because of.
Oh,
Oops. You're frozen, Ingrid.
Am I frozen? But you can hear me?
No, we can.
Now you can. Okay, so I was saying, just to finish, I was saying that it's embracing color changes, is understanding color as as living color, and also something that Carolyn says, that color has the power of color and its ingredients may create something deeper than the image that we can see. So I would leave you with that phrase and with this idea of that in materials, colors may be felt as a living thing.
absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much. And Robert, you were in moderator for Luis.
Well, we had a very intimate session. We were just a few of us, but we had continued the discussion with Jose on an interesting subject, which is, why can I imagine a transparent green, red, blue, yellow, but I cannot imagine a transparent white? And we came back with the answer that for something to be white, I think, Jose, you agree that we agreed that there are three things that something can be white if it's highly reflecting, diffusely reflecting, non-selectively reflecting, and then it can be white.
Robert, that reminds me, in our color literacy project, you would think the most simple thing we should be able to address, and it has so many dimensions and it's very complicated. And that to me just sort of is at the heart of color and the idea of it being a living substance. So absolutely, thank you. And Harold, you were in room 3 with Noora and Konrad.
Yeah, we were also just a few of us, except that we had participation from Detroit, from a course members on color and materials in a school in Detroit. There was a room full of people there, not very many, but anyway. They wanted to know what was the application method for the color, how is it applied to the wood, and we didn't actually get an answer to this question. Either it's in the hands of somebody else than Konrad and Noora, or then it's a trade secret. This remained a mystery to me. But then Dave Weibel joined us, and some of you may know that Dave Weibel specializes in measuring, and he wanted to know whether it's possible to measure the iridescent color effects or the actual colors apparent in these effects. And Konrad let us know that it's very difficult, but there are methods with spectroscopy to analyze the spectral composition from different angles coming from these surfaces. But you can, as you can imagine, it's very susceptible to many different things. The angle of measurement and the light, incident light, and so on. So it's not an easy thing. It could lead to, of course, a kind of more controllable way of developing these effects and achieving effects, the desired effects in a controlled way. But then I wanted to also participate in the discussion by asking about what about the verbal descriptions, the language, in connection with José's presentation. What are the difficulties in describing those different very rich visual iridescence and glittering effects with words? Because it's, as far as I can gather, the language is rather lacking and poor in relation to these visual effects. And I think Noora and Konrad are very conscious of this, and they're working on the terminology that's involved in creating a kind of standard descriptions for these different effects that they're creating, and maybe José and Konrad and Noora could collaborate on this.
Right. Well, you know, that's very interesting. And I think the big takeaway, I'm just sort of summarizing it for all of us. There's so much to think about. This having brought this world, you know, more alive, the world that we live in, and the role of color and light. And so we obviously, as we move into the future now, you know, and thinking about what we can do, there's lots of applications. And I just want to thank everyone for joining us, the people who have returned back to our room. Thank you from all of us. First of all, a round of applause from all of us to our speakers. So yeah, that was a beautiful talk, a beautiful set of talks. And we thank you so much for taking your time and joining us. And this was part 2. As we wanted to just open up and just have the world of materials come alive and see all these different possibilities of understanding the role of light and color and materials. So as we now move into, in June, we don't have a specific date, but probably probably June 15th-ish, we will have part 3 of the 4-part series, and that will be on the perceiver. So we're going to sort of go into what that means now as we are as perceivers of this phenomenon. So we will have part 4 in the fall, and I will reveal what that is when we get to June. So anyway, I just want to say again, thank you to everyone. Appreciate all the presentations and for giving us so much to think about. And I hope you all have a colorful week, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.